Good afternoon, Scott Redler, T3 Live. Welcome to today's recap. So we gapped up, we were up like 13, 14 handles, a little excitement that Fitch didn't downgrade France. You had some numbers from China. You also had Alcoa's earnings. And you mix it all together and the indices opened up and did nothing. But again, there was a lot of good stock action. There was a lot of just different setups, both long, both short, that guys have been making money in every different sector. So as long as there's action, you have to be optimistic and you have to try and gravitate towards it. So if you take a quick look at the S&P, you will see that the market, cleared this last little pivot, right? It cleared this tight range. So, last week we were holding support, holding above the 200-day. Today we broke out. Was it with authority? Was it with crazy power? No. But did we come and match the high here of about 1292? What was this? This was about 1296. Yeah. And they tried to sell it off and they really couldn't. So at this point, everyone was really complaining when we had the big move from the October low to the October 27th high in the matter of a month or less. We went, 200 handles almost. So now everyone's kind of complaining about this slow, methodical move. But when you have a slow, methodical move, you have time to maneuver. You have time to see where the relative weakness is, to see the relative strength, see what groups are acting better. Hold on to stocks a little bit longer. Like I've been holding stuff in my virtual trade floor realistically since December 20th, that gap and go, almost on average 6, 7, 8 positions. I think JP Morgan's still on there from that day or maybe a little later. So with that said, you can make more when the market's trending. You can hold things, and then you could also, if you don't have the risk tolerance for that, you could add cash flow based on scenarios. So as far as today's scenario, real quickly, Apple. Apple yesterday was a decent sell. All right, a lot of great setups along the way. This is when I put on my Apple. This is when we got excited that it would fill that gap and negate this island top. And then I took mine off into the new high move because of where it came from. If it was going sideways for 2 weeks, okay, going sideways, there was not a shot that I would take it off through the highs because typically, stocks that make new highs go to the upside and they make new historic highs. But when you come from this level to there, sometimes it brings out sellers. So now we'll see how Apple handles this area and see if it can go sideways. Maybe the moving averages come up. I would love to see it come and test into this 415 area or so, sort of like when it hit the 4. What it did here, when it hit the 410, it came back for only a brief 4 days and then went again. So we'll see what happens here. But I think guys were short today. They got a little paid. It was definitely a patient trade, but that was that. As far as Google, a lot of us took some stock or some options right on the close yesterday after trying it a little bit. We had a nice $10 move, sold half the options, was a great trade. Then it got really weak. And then it came back up, and now we at least have a point of reference to trade against. This move definitely was fast and furious and took a lot of the momentum out of the trade. So now the question is, can we go sideways and kind of regroup? And was this a little uncalled for because of the Motorola mobility? We don't know. But at this point, if you guys remember, the trade was when it ignited above this. Remember, we bought that dip. It came in, tested at 636, and we held. And then on this day was the day that we were out. So we have the luxury of trying it here. So I'm long a little options. We'll see with a little bit more time what's the scoop. At least we know that the point of reference we have here is 616.91. Okay, and I don't know why someone took this out, but if you put the moving average back in here with the 50-day, you will see where that line is. So it's right underneath. And then cash flow wise, Netflix back in business. It's great to have this stock back, especially at this price, because you can get a lot of size both ways and you can make money scalping. You can do whatever you want with this stock. And today, it was downgraded by Merrill Lynch. The futures had it up, and that was my cash flow trade as a short. I started shorting it around 99.50. When it went negative, I was done with it. And that's what you could do. You could trade it a few times. You could just take the move and run. You could stay with it all day long. Ultimately, Netflix, after a nice size move, gave an inside day. And realistically, even though it came off today, really no big deal. Look where it came from. This is when it was a trigger buy, when it went above this 74-ish area. I remember writing it on my note. Then when it went above the high here of 81.86, and then you had a nice move. So now with a little bit more sideways action, I'd be a buyer again. Let this thing go above 99.84, or what was this high here? Actually now we're gonna have a new pivot around the 100. That'll be a lot of fun for a gap filled at 103. So if we can go sideways a little bit, then I would say the short or the cute shorts will be not looking so cute anymore. That's why I only did it for a day. And then we get another trade through this pivot. So let it stay in the game and we'll continue to make a lot of money. I feel like this is like that AIG trade. Remember when AIG got crushed and then it just started trading again for like 4 months, and it traded perfectly with patterns because of the size of the short position and the type of news that it could have. Netflix needs to be on your radar every single day now. As far as Baidu, definitely switch gears again. The stock broke above, gapped above this flag type pattern that I was hoping it would do a few days back, which didn't, and closed pretty strong. So we'll see what that means. It did break, I wouldn't say it broke a downtrend. It's going to come into it actually. But it cleared this area and was strong for the day. I think some guys made some money there. FSLR squeezed a bit into the gap. Not a rock star, not a Netflix type trade, but they're not all going to be. Closed near the highs. I did have it all day long. I don't know what happened, why I just got out of it at the end of the day, but we'll see where that is. GMCR, looking better. GMCR, here is your red dog reversal when it took out all the supply, when people thought it was going to break the lows and reversed hard. Had a little follow through today. So we'll see where it goes. I'll be a buyer of this thing, or I'll be looking at it tomorrow if I'm in my seat. If it gets above today's high tomorrow, we'll see how it opens, but it's got some room to at least 52. This stock really has been battered and bruised, and I know a lot of people still have the Krups machine, including myself, and there's definitely some nice sized room. Let's see what this does here. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. As far as the banks have been leading the way. Goldman Sachs today was my play that made most of my day. Yesterday, I did take some home long, and I was eyeing it for a move above this flag. It opened up quick. I added some, went through the moving average, closed pretty well. There's some room here to about 102, 103. I'm going to stay long this thing and try and trail it. I won't have as much as I had when it broke above the flag, but it still looks good. JP Morgan, like I said, I've been holding since last year, which I had been. That Thursday, it sounds like a long time ago, it was only 2 weeks. But anyway, this was holding higher, much better than the banks, and that's why we took it. So I think this was that Thursday before, moving up really well. Probably will bring out some sellers in this area. I guess I'll have to sell it there. It's been a nice methodical hold. A lot of different times it was buyable on the dip, and now it's getting a little bit extended. So we'll see what happens there. As far as the OAHs, if you guys remember off the charts, we were on with Kramer, and we did the reverse head and shoulders pattern. And it was a little bit tricky from the start. So whenever you anticipate a right shoulder, it's always tricky anyway. So it was during this right shoulder that he did it, and I got stopped out right here. But just, it doesn't really matter because you're anticipating a bottom. So I got back involved, I think, right around this day. And then, now it just cleared another flag, and it's looking a lot better. The OAHs look as if it's going to clear this, or try to do it. I actually did it today, I think. If you draw, it depends on how you draw your lines, but looking pretty good. Looking like it's on the move. Next level could be around 125. I'm going to stay with this trade. Some guys went to tier 2. If you drew this channel, which is the way we've been kind of drawing it off the charts, channel broke above, maybe goes a little sideways and then continues. I would stay with this for a macro trade. There's a difference. If you're a macro holder, we've been talking about how to position in a macro trade. In December, I was talking about the January effect. I was talking about how the OAHs could be your accumulate tier 1 until it starts acting better, and obviously they acted better. Did I just say the banks, or what did I say, the OAHs? Whatever. OAHs and banks were that group, and also the AGs. Look at Moo. Moo, we were talking about that also. Nice move. Nice methodical move. This was your left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder, and started to go. And Jill loved this group. She was all over it, and it's looking better. So you just have to figure out which time frame you want to go with. You could use the stocks intraday as a vehicle, but if you want to hold some ETFs, why not? Let the market go for you. You can see that I've been holding onto the spiders and the OAHs pretty much every day for the last 2 weeks. So I've been enjoying this nice run, so I haven't had the stress of if we gap up, because I know, we've been able to trade around it. The day we gap down and we can't at least try and go positive or take back 75% of it is the day that I will lighten up and say something changed. But for now, we're still steadily moving up. As far as gold's concerned, big day today, or decent day today. Right in this area, I was talking about how I think it was this day that the euro was making lows and gold wouldn't go down. So I'm like, you know what? It's not ready to be shorted yet. Look where it came from. High, lower high, lower high. It still has some room even up to here. So why are you just foaming at the mouth to short gold? Give it some time. So I've been just inactive. I think I covered on this day. Actually, yeah, no, I covered the silver on this day. What day was that? That was 12/29. Yep, 12/29, the day that, this was when, remember, we had that nice trade over Christmas while everybody was away, on the beach, and we were just cruising, trading stocks. Well, this was the day it broke below, shorted some, held it, it was lower, and then right when it crossed this area, that was your signal to cover. And then since then, it's been pretty much methodical to the upside, and then we'll see how it handles here. So, time and place for stocks. So all in all, a lot to do. I have to be very, you should be excited about the action that's taking place. I know it's been only feels like more than a week and a half, but it's only been a week and a half, and there's been a lot to do. Lots of longs, lots of shorts, lots of, squeezes from the lows, some decent type of, upside. We don't have the true leadership that I would really like, or that healthy leadership, and stocks making 52-week highs and going nuts, but we can't have everything. So I guess that's what's keeping us honest. That's what's keeping us from going tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, more like tier 1 overnight, tier 2, tier 3 intraday, and then take it off because, again, there is still a lot of headline risk. You can't fall asleep behind the wheel. So all in all, good action, another good day. See you at the morning call with Alex Steele. Have a great night.